Hi, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of our new EasySend podcast, EasySend on Air. I'm Tali. I'm a global account executive here at EasySend. Before EasySend, I worked for about 10 years in SaaS companies, so Monday.com, Checkpoint Technologies. I'm very passionate about digital transformation. And we decided to open this new podcast because throughout my career, I learned that the best way to learn is from customer stories and from honest discussions. And this is exactly what we aim to do in this podcast. The topic of this first episode is going to be renewals. So this is a recurring pain point that I keep hearing about again and again and again. Customers that tell us that they have money left on the tables, deals that essentially get missed, and a lot of back and forth that could cause a lot of frustration, both for customers and for the team that is managing the renewals. I could not think of a better person to join me in today's podcast. This is Ktora, our VP of Customer Success.
Hello, Tali. I'm happy to be here.
Hello, Ktora. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. A bit nervous about our first podcast. But yeah, I'm happy to be here and happy to join on this specific topic.
Well, you look like a natural, I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Ktora, please do introduce yourself.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, my name is Ktora. I've been with EasySend for 3 years now, serving as VP Customer Success. In total, I've been 20 years in SaaS, 15 of those years in customer success. And for the past decade or so, I've been in executive roles in customer success.
Wow. So you had your fair share of managing renewals.
For sure. Renewals has always been a significant part of my role, not just because my team is measured on renewals and upsells, but also because it's really such a significant junction in every customer's journey.
100%. This is exactly why we brought you here today, to learn from your experience. And the first thing I would want to ask you is around the pain. What, in your experience, is the most significant pain around renewals?
Okay, so good question. It's a good place to start. So I think when it comes to manual renewals, honestly, it can be very painful. Oftentimes they're lengthy, they're very messy due to several reasons. Think about countless email threads. Think about attachments that are missing. Think about signatures or approvals that are waiting in someone's mailbox. So when you think about all of those things, it becomes very difficult to keep track of everything. What is the risk of that? The risk is not just your team missing or wasting their precious time, but the larger risk is actually having renewals falling between the cracks.
100%. And I can say from my experience, both as an account manager and as a renewals manager in Checkpoint Technologies, it is very, very difficult to keep track at all the renewals, especially when you work at scale. And we tend to pretty much focus on specific ones that we think have the most significant risks. It did happen to me that I didn't dedicate enough attention to all of my customers. And then suddenly, a week before the renewal, you find out that they're moving to a different tool, which is a huge loss for the company that can be very easily prevented. So it brings me to my next question, which is, what do you think is the value of digitizing renewals?
Mm-hmm. So connecting to what you just said, there's a lot on everyone's table, right? And a lot on our team's shoulders. It's very easy to forget we're human beings. And like you said, you have to prioritize. You have larger accounts that you're going to be more focused on. And it becomes very easy to forget the smaller accounts, forget to follow up. So digitizing the process, really what it does is it helps provide structure to the entire process end to end and streamline the process, and also incorporates automation for tasks that otherwise are manual and waste time and can easily be forgotten.
100%. So it's all about, first of all, making sure that we're on top of everything, right? That we're not missing any renewals, that we have, the specific cadences that we want. Contact them 3 months, 6 months, 1 month ahead of time to make sure that we're on track. But moreover than that, my main question would be, is there a risk in digitizing the entire process? Because I think part of the perception around renewals is these are the customers that chose us, and they should be a high priority for us to contact and give them all the attention that we deserve. So what is your view on that?
Yeah, so that's a good point. And I think something that is really on everyone's mind, right? Like where to draw the line, what to automate and what not to automate. So I don't think there's a right answer for everyone or every case. I do think that there are things that can easily be automated. For example, follow-up emails on approvals and things like that. But also you want to make sure that your customers have the opportunity to speak with a customer success manager or an account executive if they do want to have a deeper conversation. So basically, it also depends on the line of business of the company, of course, what resources they have at hand, probably the segmentation. Is it a large enterprise customer? Is it a small SMB customer? So there are different factors, but at the end of the day, I personally believe in a healthy mix between automation and human touch.
That's very interesting. I think for me, the way I view it, I would have to agree, because it's simply impossible a lot of times to keep track with everyone and give everyone the same amount of attention. And sometimes we just don't know. We just don't know where we should focus our resources. So a simple, do you need assistance with this renewal, or are you looking to renew, can be so significant for us to say, okay, so this customer needs us. Let's talk to them. Obviously, if we know that specific customers are at risk, if we know that specific customers need to be, more high touch, that's completely fine. We don't need to streamline the process for everyone, but it can definitely help us leave less money on the table. That being said, what would be a potential pitfall of digitizing the renewal process?
Okay. So another good question. And I think probably the most common pitfall we see is when customers attempt to solve every problem and cover every edge case from day one. So I'll give you an example. So let's take the renewal process that we're talking about today. So imagine a business that has 80% of their customers as direct customers, 20% as indirect via partners. So I would recommend in that situation to start by building out a process that supports your direct customers, which is 80% of your business. Really perfect that process, launch it, gather feedback, enhance it, make sure that it works properly and solves the issues that you were trying to solve. And at a later stage, you can enhance the process and add more business logic and conditions to support the additional 20%. So basically, to summarize, I would say start simple. Really focus on the key challenges that you have. And address those first. You can always add and enhance later on.
So I have to agree with you 100%. And I think one thing that's important to mention about EasySend is that a lot of our customers grow with us. So they start with a simple use case, may it be renewals or claims or onboarding, and then they just grow. You can add roles and permissions and additional steps. You can make it more advanced and add integrations, and you can add new use cases that you have in your organization. What would be another pitfall that you can think of?
So another common pitfall we see is when customers really focus a lot on building the digital process and put less emphasis on the adoption piece. So you can have an amazing digital process, but if no one's using it or not enough people are using it, it really obviously loses its value. So I recommend two things to kind of avoid that pitfall. The first one, which is very important, is do the groundwork. Talk to the stakeholders that are going to be using the process, participating in the process, understand their needs, understand their pain points, and make sure you're addressing them. Because if you are, then believe me, they'll use the process when it comes out. The second one is actually relevant to after the process goes live. Make sure that you have a solid rollout plan in place that includes training, feedback sessions or feedback cycles, and first line of support. Because don't forget, there is change management involved here. People will need help or may have questions or may have even reservations, may need guidance. And you want to make sure that you have the right resources in place to provide all of that.
I couldn't agree more. I think at the end of the day, if people don't use the process that you created, then it's not worth anything. It's all about alignment. It's all about the change management. It's making sure that everyone sees the impact of the process that you're creating. At the end of the day, you can create the perfect process. But if there's no alignment and people don't actually use it, it's not worth anything. So it's all about the change management. It's all about making sure that everyone knows the impact and knows the steps that need to be taken. And I think the way I see it, it makes a lot of sense. And it's kind of, you have to digitize renewals when you're working at scale. But the main question that I have is, how does EasySend make it simpler?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So first of all, EasySend is a no-code AI-assisted tool that anyone can use. So it also offers a wide variety of out-of-the-box features and functionalities that are really geared towards enhancing the digital journey experience. And also it can be integrated into your CRM tool, whether it be Salesforce or Monday or any other tool, at a click of a button. So it really, really is an easy tool to use and allows you to achieve very complex processes at the other end.
I feel like for me, when I think about EasySend, one thing that comes to mind is that a lot of people don't necessarily know the difference between a digital journey and form, because there's plenty of form tools out there and not so many digital journeys. So the way that I see it, a digital journey, first of all, is all about the customer experience. So full white labeling with your design. Secondly, it's about the personalization. So making sure everyone only sees what's relevant for them. And most importantly, it's about making sure that you have the business logic behind it that actually fits the process that you want. That being said, there are still other tools that do digital journeys. What do you think is our main competitive edge?
Mm-hmm. So it's actually very aligned with what you just said. If I had to choose one thing, I would say our workflow manager. So the workflow manager, imagine it as your starting point, your drawing board, even before you start to actually build the digital process. That's where you plan the process or the workflow end to end and pour all the business logic and conditions and all the things that you just mentioned into the digital process. We actually call it the brain and the beating heart behind the digital process, because that's what really brings it to life and makes it complex and makes it adaptable to every end user experience.
I really love the way that you described it, the beating heart behind the process. And I think this is what allows us to do from the simplest data intake process to the most complex. Like, we work with huge banks that have KYCs, and they need to go through many different steps, approval cycles. They need to have the conditions, the permissions. And this is much more than a simple condition of show this if the previous question is a yes or no, right? The workflow is really what sets us apart. All right. So I am super, super excited to show you how it looks like. And this is where we're going to go into the demo. As you can see, now I'm in the Salesforce in the customer's account with all of their information. I can go to Send EasySend process and choose the relevant process. It's very important to mention, I can launch this process from monday.com or any other CRM very easily. So once I choose the relevant process, I'm going to click on Send. And now I will show you the customer's email to access the process. Once I click here, this is, by the way, very easily customizable in terms of the design and the content. And then if the customer clicks on the link, they're going to see the white labeled digital journey for their renewal. We chose Pet Points and a renewal for a pet's insurance. The name of the customer is Maya. And here she can very easily refresh her info. If she needs to make any changes, she can make them here, right? We want to make sure that everything is updated. Now we have validations to make sure that the information inputted is correct. So we don't need to chase and don't need to have that back and forth of you inputted the wrong email, you inputted the wrong type of file. I have here an integration to Google Maps. So this has an autocomplete to add the address to make sure that it's correct. And now when I click on next, you can see here that I have the pet's name, Phoebe. Phoebe is a dog, and the start date and the end date and the current insurance term. I'm going to show you now how the preview looks like from a phone. It's very easily accessible from a phone or a tablet. And then when I click on next, I have here the renewal options. I have the start date. I can choose the renewal term, whether it's a year, 2 years, or 3 years. And here I have interested in consulting a pet expert. So based on what we said before, we want to make sure the people who want to receive a personal touch will get the access to that. They can very easily add what it is that they need assistance with and click on next. I have here a quick recap. The renewal start date, the term, and the amount. And I'm going to show you how based on our conditions and formulas, I can very easily change the amount based on the promotion that I have for 2 years. Now you can see the amount is lower and includes the discount. Once I click on next, I can very easily sign. And now I completed my part of inputting the renewal request. Once the customer has submitted it, you can see they have a preview. If they need to make any changes, they can. And now, very importantly, we want to move this renewal to the next stage. The next stage is, in this particular use case, an approval from the manager. So now the manager is going to receive an email. Renewal request is waiting for your approval. Once they click on the link that you can see here, they're going to first of all see the information that was inputted by the customer. So I'm going to wait a tiny second, and here it is. I have here all the information. I can review the information and see if there's any changes that the customer needs to do. I can choose if I want to approve the renewal or reject it. If I want to approve, I can very easily sign a happy smiley or anything else. And if not, I can reflect to the customer what is missing. So in this case, an ID is missing. And I'm going to submit this request after. And then I'm going to show you how the same customer, how Maya is going to now receive an email with a request to fill out the missing information. Obviously, in this case, we use the same email, but in reality, it's going to be different emails. You can see this is from the request for missing ID, okay, that Maya needs to complete. Okay, so now I'm going into the workflow manager. This is, like Torah mentioned, this is the brain, the beating heart behind the process. It can be very simple or it can be very complex. And I can very easily design the process, the different steps, the different permissions, the type of communication that I want to send. I can add a one-time password for authentication to make sure that the right person is connecting and that they continue the process wherever they stopped. I can very easily add reminders, right? We want to make sure the customer started the process, that they're going to actually complete it. And it happens that you start the process and then, I don't know, you've been asked to add a file that you don't have right now. And then, oops, you forgot about it. So here we can make sure that instead of sending another email or adding another phone call, I can very easily choose the time of this reminder and make sure that this is streamlined automatically. So now let's talk about the conditions. As you can see here, if the process was indeed approved by the manager, then I need to go into a specific route. So I added here the condition. If the request for the renewal was approved, they're going to receive a thank you email. However, if it was not, then they need to add the necessary information. Zooming out, okay, you can see here that I can very easily add the communication, the conditions, and anything else I need to add. All right. So, Ktora, what do you think about the demo?
Wow. So I must say I was surprised by the puppies. I haven't seen it yet, and they were super cute. But seriously, I think it's a great demonstration of what can be achieved with a digital process that's done correctly. I think you can see EasySend capabilities in terms of conditions and validations and look and feel. But to be honest, the thing that stands out the most for me is the customer experience, what they see, what they receive in terms of email updates and how the process looks like and how easy it is to interact with. And you can sign there and you can upload your documents. Everything is in one place. It's just so much of a better experience than having, like I mentioned before, countless email threads.
I 100% agree. And I do want to say again, renewals don't have to be chaotic. You can very easily streamline the process and save a lot of time and money. Ktora, thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks everyone for listening. And see you at the next episode.
Thank you, Tali. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.